and start with a, I'm in Photoshop, but this could be done in any application that allows you to do layers, Pixlr or Procreate, whatever your choice, your app of choice. So I've already brought in a bunch of photos that I took of self-portraits of myself, and I'm going to be using one of those. And I've got those up here in this folder called Mugs. And I just took a bunch of different shots and different poses and different expressions just to kind of give myself a little bit of choices to work from. So I kind of titled each layer just a little bit different to kind of reflect the attitude that I was giving when I took the picture. I'm just posing in this one to be a little bit more kind of cocky looking. And then I did this one just to show you that this is probably one of the worst poses you could do for anybody could do. The side portrait just really makes you flattens you out, doesn't show your features, and really doesn't really do a good job of exemplifying your features. Whereas this one, it's not great because you're looking right up my nose here, but at least you can see, the shape of the head, the expressions, and so forth. So I'm not too jazzed with either one of those. And this one, I'm kind of doing more of a sort of a gesture of looking up and kind of posing with my hand a bit to kind of, it looks a little funny, but, and then this one is more just like seeing something like a car crash happen, right? So WTF, and it's got, again, I'm turning my head to the side. I'm not looking straight at the camera. I'm looking away from the camera. So if that's what you want to have happen, you don't want to engage the viewer. You want to look away from the viewer, look at something, look off into the distance at something, or look at something in the room, and that will pull off the ability to make yourself look like you're seeing something happening or whatever. This one, I'm looking directly back at you, at the camera, at the viewer, and giving a kind of like a like somebody just held up a cute puppy, and that was my reaction to it. So, or just like a serious kind of a pose, just no expression, just kind of just sort of straight up kind of like contemplation. So I think I'm going to go with this one, just because it has a little bit of interesting quality to it and detail. So I'm going to make a copy of that layer, and I will put it here, and we'll hide these. So I'm going to put this down at the bottom. This is my copy layer that's down here, and then I'm going to leave that as a copied layer. So that's to show me where I started, or to show anybody where it started. And I'll do another copy of that one. And this one's going to be one that I'm just going to reduce it down to just black and white. So there's a lot of different ways to do this in different various applications. Typically, it's an adjustment that you want to do to it. So I'm going to do an under image, and I'm going to go down to the word adjustment, and then I'm going to go to a adjustment that will allow me to get rid of all of the color that's in there. So I'm going to tell it to, there's a couple different ways to do this. One's called desaturate, it just gets rid of all the color. Another one is called black and white. I like this one better because it gives you some options as far as being able to tell it which colors are being translated into either darks or lights. So all the reds here, if I change all the reds to be really dark, you'll see all the reds that are going on in the photograph are all in my face. So I'm adjusting my facial features here. So now I'm kind of like, making my head glow a bit. So if I wanted to darken these up a bit, I could do that. So yellows, you're going to see the same thing kind of occurring there because my skin tones are on the orangey side of things. So I'm sort of brightening or I'm darkening the skin tones there. And you'll see some green is going to pop out that in my eyes a bit. So this will darken my eyes a little bit. And then the blues, there's some in the background. There's some blues in the background. You see how I do that? It gets darker. I go this way, it gets lighter. Right? I'm actually going to knock the background out, so maybe darker would be better. And then it might be some magentas going on. There's a little bit in my mouth. You can see my lips getting lighter there, or darker. So I do like this one a little bit better. It helps to control, give you some more controls to it rather than just the overall desaturate control that's here, right there, desaturate. There's a way to do it with gradient maps. There's a way to do it with photo filters. There's a way to do it with as far as adjustments go, that's probably the best ways to get to it. Okay, so I've got a black and white layer that I'm working with here. Now I want to create something more on the lines of an image that can be maybe understood more as a drawing or as an overall look and feel or idea that has a drawn kind of feel to it. And you could easily just say, okay, I'm going to make a new layer here, and I'm going to, in this layer, I'm going to draw on top of my image, and just draw around the features and hand draw that. I wouldn't do this with a pencil. I would probably pick up the brush tool and then size this down appropriately. So I'm going to take it down to a smaller point size, like 4 or 5 pixels, and then be sketching with that. So right now I'm sketching with red because that's in my foreground color. But if I wanted to make lines around my face that were darker, sort of tones, so something like that maybe, then I would be painting with that. So like I said, I don't like painting with a mouse. I like using tools like this is the Wacom tablet that we have in our lab, in the computer lab, and CYA and Claypool Young. We also have them to check out over in Breck Labs. But what it allows you to do is to basically treat your canvas like you're drawing. You're physically drawing. So the marks you're going to be making over top of your image, I'm going to draw a layer here, is going to be drawn marks. So any kind of places where you see lines, and I'm doing just fine details at this point. And, they're hard to see because they're very small lines. Remember, I set this to 4 pixels. You can see right here it says 4 pixels. But I'll make these just a little bit bigger so you can see the drawing lines here. So I'm just kind of sketching around the image, over top of the image, just with a pencil, with a paintbrush that kind of leaves behind these marks they're dark lines, and they are according to my pressure that I'm pressing down on with my pen, with the stylus in my hand. The softer that I draw with this, the smaller the lines are. You see I'm making fine lines right there just by doing that. And if I press really hard, look how thick the line gets. So that's a really nice little ability to be able to change on the fly just by pressing down a little bit harder. You can get darker lines, or just pressing a little lighter, you get really fine kind of lines. So it's a really nice tool for artists to be able to translate content that exists pictorially, in this case a black and white photograph, and allows me to interpret that with marks that I draw onto the surface. I'm going to just hide the layer that's here so you can see the lines that I'm making so far. So you can see the very fine lines that I'm making there around the nose. All that was done just with light passes, light pressing of the stylus. Whereas when I press a little harder or get darker lines, so lines that are kind of darker areas, so like under the armpit there, I would probably do kind of darker lines. Lines that kind of run up around the shirt here indicate those areas. Lighter lines. Lines that go around the outside of a character typically are darker. They kind of they're sort of indications of the outer edge of the form. So a lot of times you'll see artists who will draw with very heavy lines around the figure, stylizing it with really dark lines, and then finer lines on the interior of the shape to identify smaller, more detailed features and indicating where everything kind of goes. What's nice about these little stylus is all you have to do is flip them over if you make a mistake, and it turns it into an eraser. And so you can just very quickly turn the stylus over and you have an eraser. Does anybody have an Apple Pen? Anybody paint on an iPad or have an Apple Pen?
I do.
And does the Apple Pen do that when you turn it over? Does it have a eraser on the other side of it?
No, but if you change like the set, like whatever you're, I guess, clicked on or whatever, it just turns into an eraser.
Okay. I've never used one, so I had to ask that question. But I do know that that all the Wacoms that we have in our lab and over in Breck, they have that ability. So it's a nice feature because you don't have to come over here and find the eraser, click on it, and then erase. It's just built into the program. Okay. I mean, I would spend probably about a good 15, 20 minutes just laying down lines for this type of a procedure where we're kind of establishing the shape and forms that we're working with, and that's just one way to kind of get started with a drawn image. So that's more you physically doing all the labor and drawing the outlines, and then adding color later, which I'm gonna talk about here after I'll show you a couple of different ways to kind of manually get the computer to draw for you. Okay, so I'm going to turn that layer off and go back to my draw layer, my black and white layer, and I'm going to duplicate that. So on this duplicated layer, I've got the black and white copy selected here, and I'm going to copy this one and call this one filter 1. I'm not sure which filter it's going to be, but I'll show you a few and then we'll discuss them. So I've got black and white in my foreground and background, and if you ever need to get that just to pop in there real quick, click this little icon, it automatically pops in there. And then with that filter layer selected, I'm going to go under the word filter, and I'm going to go down to the filter gallery. Filter gallery, or in Procreate, it might just be under filter, and inside of Pixlr, I think it's just under filter as well. But if you go to the filter gallery, it will have all these different filters that you can apply to the image. This one is called Glow Edge, and it has the ability to kind of make the edges finer, so that'd be the width of the edge, or brighter, or less smooth, or more smooth. So you can see it's kind of just sort of smoothing out the edges there. And what it's doing here is it's kind of making line art for you, right? It's glowing the edges. Now you're probably like, okay, but that's a white those are white lines. What if I want those to be black lines? Well, all you have to do is invert that, and it turns it into a black and white drawing for you. So, and that was a command that I just did with my hand, Command I, but it's under, I think it's under filter, image, and no, it's not there. Under layer, maybe. I can't remember where it is now. It is so. I use it as just a quick command so many times I forget where to actually find it. So that was under layer, and invert, and image adjustment. There it is. It's over here. Adjustment, invert. Yeah. Okay. Command I. That's how you do it. Anyway, so that's what was that? Glow edge. Glow edge. Okay. And turn that off and then do another copy of that black and white. We'll call this one filter 2. And let's do another one. So again, with the filter 2 selected, and then under filter gallery. And this one, I'm going to go up to the word sketch, and I'm going to twirl that down. Sketch allows you to pick any of these that are available inside the folder. So here's what a charcoal sketch looks like. Here's what a graphite pen sketch looks like. Here's what a charcoal sketch looks like. Here's chrome, bas relief, halftone pattern, notebook color, photocopy, stamp, reticulation, plaster, torn edge, watercolor paper. So all these will kind of produce an image that has a bit of a drawn feeling to it. So in this one, you can see it has the ability to vary the graphic pen by changing its length of stroke. So that's a long stroke. Here's a short stroke. And it's going to balance the light in more towards the lighter side. But if you turn it this way, it'll brighten that up a bit. So you'll see some of your midtones be released. Then it asks you, do you want the stroke direction to be diagonally to the left, diagonally to the right, horizontal, or vertical? So you can choose any of those to kind of get your image to look better. You can also do things like just select the body and have it do all of the body in a horizontal or left diagonal, and then have the background selected and do it in a different style. So here I'm going to select the subject here, and it's a new filter built into Photoshop where you just tell it to select any figure in a photograph, and it knows where it is based on the background and based on the content of the foreground, and creates that selection. And then use that filter. So then filter gallery, and I'm going to go back to sketch, graphic pen, sideways, and you can see how it's only doing it to me and not to the background. Now I do it to the background by inverting that selection, inverse, and then do it again. Filter gallery, and then this time we'll change it to the direction of vertical or right diagonal to oppose it. So it is possible to get your drawing to look a little bit more stylized that way. So this one's graphic pen. Okay, and now I'll duplicate the black and white again, hide the graphic pen, and call this one filter 3. And again, filter, I'm going to deselect this now, and filter gallery. If you go to the first one, if you're in Photoshop, you go to the first one, it automatically applies the last filter you put on it. But if you go down to the filter gallery, it'll allow you to reselect a different filter. So So like I like photocopy because it does a really good job of banging out a nice dark outline around the figure. And then you can do that same thing where you tell it to under select the subject and then basically tell it to only do it to the subject. So filter gallery, photocopy, and hit OK. And then select the inverse and delete. Or filter gallery again. And use a different content creator or something like that. So that gets rid of the entire background when I deleted it out of there. So you can tell it to draw around the figure by having it select and then tell it to stroke that image. So under edit, I'm going to say stroke with the foreground color 5, let's go 15 pixels, maybe 15 pixels, and hit OK. That puts a big stroke around it. That's too thick, I think. So undo that. Under edit, stroke. Let's go back to 7. That's a bit better. That's still kind of thick. I'd say more thinner is better. Let's see. Another way to do this by telling it to. This may not be something that you can do actually inside of. I'm not going to say that you can't do it, but I don't know how to do it in Procreate or in Pixlr. But if you can pull down the window for the pen tool or the paths. So this is a path window here, and you can tell it to turn that selection into a path just by clicking on this. So that makes that selection into a path. And then when you have that path, you can tell it to stroke that path, and this will use the brush to stroke it with. So whatever brush you're currently using, it will use that brush to stroke around the path. So you can see I have a 25-point stroke on the brush. So if I make that smaller, let's say go down to something that we were talking about just a second ago, and then do that again, see it's got a much better look to that stroke. That's very much more kind of flowy and consistent. So that's just another way of creating that kind of look. Yeah, so that's just without any background. It's just my portrait that's going on there. Okay, so let's call that just me drawn. And duplicate the drawing layer again, the black and white layer, and we'll call this one filter 4. And I'm going to, again, filter gallery. And this one, I'm going to, instead of using the sketch, I'm going to use the artistic. And there's a couple ones that are up here that I kind of like that help to kind of break the image up nicely. This one called Cutout. And with edge fidelity, you can get it to look more like, more like a cleaner image. And so if you have it all the way down here, it kind of breaks it into these kind of larger, smoother. If you bring that edge simplicity down, it gets it more rough. If you bring it up, you'll see it. You're kind of disappear into sort of a, I don't know, abstract geometric kind of shape, which be kind of cool for the background. I think I'm going to do that just for the background. So I'm going to say OK, and we're going to call this background. And then I'm going to take that layer and just rotate it around this way. It's cool, I like that. Okay. And then go back to my black and white copy and call this cutout. And we'll do that again to this one, but we'll do it in front here. So in this one, before I do the cutout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the background. So I'm going to say select subject again. Now, if I hit delete right now, it'll delete me. So I want to inverse that selection first and then hit delete. And then deselect, and then we'll go back to that filter and filter gallery and back to cutout. Let's go. Keep the numbers high, but the simplicity, let's keep it maybe something like there. You can still see my personality. So, and then the fidelity, increase that. I think I like it better back here, more geometric. So I like this one because it gives you these kind of areas to sort of shoot for, that if you start filling these with colors, then you can very quickly start to create a painting of your features. And then I've got the background behind it that will fill with some color to give us a nice kind of cool background. And I'll show you different ways to kind of manipulate that. Maybe we'll start with that just as a way to kind of start adding color to this. So so I have a color layer that's already made there. I'm going to pull this down so it's right above the background. Doesn't have to be, but I'm going to hide myself and then work on the background first. So if I wanted to replace the color that's going on in this, you could easily just start filling this with color, because these are just solid shapes, and tools like the paint bucket tool will allow you to do that, where you're just basically getting a bucket full of color and dumping them into an area. And what it does is it senses that you have it senses that you're trying to fill in an area, and so when you touch that area with a color, so let me just first sort of pick up some colors that might work here. So I might just go ahead and find a palette that's complementary. These are kind of colors that or palettes that are organized according to themes here. So there's RGB, which is just your basic colors that are from the RGB spectrum. Then there's CMYK, which is the basic colors from that spectrum. There's grayscale, there's pastels, there's light colors, there's pure colors, there are dark colors, there are darker colors, there are pale colors. So these are all just swatches that you can pick up. And the way that it works in Photoshop is as you pick up colors, so let's say you go and you pick up a few pastels that you think will be good for the background. So so I'm just picking up complements here that are going to work together. So I've got this peachy kind of color and this purpley kind of color. The direct complements of those would be stuff like here and stuff like here. So those four colors are double complementary color scheme. So if I wanted to use that double complement in the background, I could fill with these colors. So I could fill with blue, and you can see how it's spilled over into everything, right? So that has to do with the tolerance of the spill that you're using. So if I take this down to just 10, for example, in paint, you see how it didn't fill as much that time. So the tolerance that you add to this will tolerate a small amount of variations of colors. So if I click here in this grayscale area, gray area, it fills all of that, right? And it's just sensing these colors that are here. So I would let me do this before I fill all these colors here into the background, because I'm on the background layer, not on the color layer here. Because I'm on the color layer and I go to fill, it'll fill the whole thing, because I'm not when I'm pressing on this layer, I'm pressing on an empty layer, so it fills the whole layer. But when I'm on this layer and I press, it only fills that one area of pixels that I pressed on. So here I'll show you in my image here. So if I click on underneath my chin, you see how it filled just those sections underneath my chin, right? So I would want to be in the background color if I wanted to affect that. So I want to keep this, so I'm going to duplicate this and call this one background color. And then I'm just going to start dumping some of those colors that I mixed in here into that. So let's go yellow here, yellow there, yellow there. And then let's go purple here. I'm just using the darker kind of areas to fill the purple sections. And then let's go oranges into here and there. And I think maybe a purple right there. Fill that. Okay, so, and that's, that's a fine way to start. Because this is Photoshop. So even if you don't like those colors, I missed a couple down here. What should we make those? Maybe purple. Let's go. Yeah, so I mean purple. So let's go here, and then let's go here, here. Okay, I think that's everything. All right. So. So even if you don't like the colors that are there, you can change them around. So under image adjustments, we can tell those hues and those colors to to saturate more, to desaturate more, to brighten up, to darken down, to shift even. Right? So if you didn't like the split complementaries that you chose, they are split complementary, so when you change it all, it's going to change all of them split complementary wise around the board as much as you want. So the darks become light, the lights become dark, the cools become warm, the warms become cool. So you can completely change around anything that you create as an image. So maybe I'll lighten this up and desaturate it, and then shift the image colors maybe to here. Like that. Right. So, and then if you're working on top of the image and you want to colorize it, let's say I take this color here, and let's say I create a gradient. These are different gradients that you can pull up. So these are blue gradients here. So let's go with like a steely kind of blue, like to purple, blue to purple. And then I'm just going to apply it in just a wipe. It's going to wipe from blue, like a teal, down over to purple. I'm going to click and drag, it does that. And then I'm going to tell those colors to spill over top of the background color by changing its overlay so that it colorizes it. So these are different ways that you can add that gradient blend to the image that's behind it. So it's like a soft kind of screen overlay. Here's a harder one that uses dodge. So you can do all sorts of interesting things with these types of overlays and get the colors that are above to spill down onto the objects that are below. So something like, that's kind of cool. And this is still kind of got some split complementary color schemes going on there. Just kind of cool. Let's go with that. Anyway, all right. So so that's our going to be our background color, either this one or that one. And now let's work on colorizing my face. So like I was showing you a second ago, I've got this cutout. I could just go into the cutout with a paint bucket tool, which is here, and pick up skin tones and start placing them into my face. So if I were to just take colors that are my skin tone, there's actually a folder here that I've downloaded a bunch of it's a color palette that I downloaded from a website that are just, these are all various skin tones of every kind of skin that's out there. Or if you'd like, you could create your own simply by pulling up that layer that you had earlier saved, right? So I'm just going to display the earlier layer that has my actual skin in it. And I'm going to pick up it's called the eyedropper tool. And it looks like a little tincture like that you would use for sampling. So if you just sample, it'll pick up colors like here's under my chin, here's under my neck, here's on my forehead, here's under my brow, here's the color underneath my nose, here's the color of my tongue, my lips. And so every time I do that, if you look at your palette now, all those colors are being saved in here. So these are all my skin tones. So now I can go in and I can say on that layer that I'm wanting to add color to, I can then go into that palette that I was using, and I can start adding color just by dumping them into the areas where I think those colors should go. So so maybe these are my sort of truer to skin tone kind of colors versus something like this one, which is a little more shady right there. And then if you want, like I don't have anything here that's as dark as I need it, so maybe that's going to be probably as dark as it's going to get. And every time you use a color, it automatically just sort of, these are just sort of the last 12 or 14 colors that you've used. And so it'll keep track of those as you go through it. So here and then here. And then some highlight colors more like up through here. No, more like this one, I think. No, this one was the top one. Yeah, I think that was it. And then something particularly light here. Like that. That's too bright. Too close. So if that's too close, you can always come into the color and you can say, okay, it's not dark enough, so just add a little bit of darkness to it, and it creates a different color that you can then throw in there. So it needs to be somewhere in between here and here, like a little brighter than that. So, and I'm just holding down the Option key, and it changes me from the bucket tool to the eyedropper. Then you can just brighten up that color. So that it stands out a little bit better. So that's around the edge of the ear. The inside of the ear might be this color right here. And then the very base of it might be more of a shade of that color. So I might go here and bring it down to more of a shade and then throw those into the areas like this. Paint. And then for a really deeper shadow, same color, just kind of going deeper there for the inner ear right there. And then maybe around underneath the brow, it might be this color, like that. And then something maybe a little bit more warmer around here. And then something even warmer just above it. And around the nose, probably this is the highlight area. And then something like that around here. So all these colors that I'm putting into here are these oranges. If you look at where these colors are actually coming from, you'll see they're coming from the orange kind of section of the palette. These colors that are the colors of my gums and the colors of my tongue and lips, they're more kind of on the warmer reddish side. I'd say red orange, you know, and you can even go more towards, you know, sort of a reddish red color for those areas as well. So if I wanted to, let's say around the lip area, make that color more like that. And okay, it's going to spill around that area now. And then inside the mouth there, that might be a shade of that color. So kind of dropping it down into more of a shadowy area. And I think it's above here. That's that right there. And then that's a little darker too, right there, just above the lip. But regardless, it's mostly these oranges and red oranges, right? That I'm choosing. So what would I do for my shirt for what's going on my shirt down here? Because right now it's just gray. What could I do to fill that area? Well, I might think about two colors that might go with the oranges and the red oranges that are going up there. So just look at those complements and look at your color wheel. Pull your color wheel out and look right across the way of orange. What's right across the way of orange? Well, it's blue. So there's a palette that I can bring down that has some samples of some lighter colors. Blue is just one of them. So here's a blue color. We could use that one. Here's one that's more of on the tealer side of it, or one that's more kind of a pale blue, sky blue. Maybe that's the color you want to put in up here. So that might be all these medium value areas right there. We're going to get that. So you might just, all those might be the cooler blue. And then the outer parts of these where the highlights are, it might be these colors of blue, right? So everything that's kind of the brighter sections right there, right there, right there, there. And then if you like, go back to that one or go to something that's a little darker, blues for that. So these are kind of on the moving towards the purple side of blue. But I think what we need is the bluer greens and blue blues to sort of work with the complements that we're talking about there, the two double complements, and that will kind of give us maybe some more shadowy areas here for underneath the shirt. Here, 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 that, and then for the sort of the tealy kind of blues, make those the shadows as well. So come down into like this area here, and that might be in like here and up here, and there, and there. I'm just making this up as I go, you guys. It's not really like. It's the lighter the values, the lighter the color I'm using, and the darker the values, the darker the color I'm using. So I'm just throwing dark colors into dark gray areas that are dark blues, and in the lighter areas, I'm going with something that's kind of more maybe medium or not as shadowy, but definitely a different color, so it stands out. And so that gives me kind of a complementary color scheme that's working in there. And that's going to go well with that color scheme that I have in the background too, because it also has some of those colors that we were talking about using earlier. So there's a good example of a sketch. So that's what I'm talking about. That's a good example of a digital sketch right there. So what you would want to do with this now is just take you can make a snapshot of it, take a screenshot of it, save it as a JPEG file. So if I said save as a copy, save a copy and tell it to be a JPEG file, it's going to basically just take a snapshot of that image, everything that's right there, no layers, and just save it. And I'm going to save that onto the desktop so that maybe I'll put it into a new folder, and we'll call these digital sketches for comp painting. And we're going to call this paint sketch 1. And it's going to save it as a JPEG into that folder with very low compression. I like the optimized versus the standard, and hit OK. There's not much difference. Like if you turn the preview on and you change from baseline to standard, you'll see a slight different size change on that. So it's going from just under a megabyte to closer to a megabyte of information. So it does a better job of organizing the pixels. Okay, so that's just one sketch, right? So I could, if I really like the style that's going on there, I could just go in and change the colors now, because I have basically 2 layers, right? 2 layers with all my colors on them. There's this color that's down here, that's my background color. And if I wanted to, I could adjust those colors and shift them. So I could say, okay, instead of them being that, you know, I'm going to go towards these purples and these greens, right? So it's a split complementary color scheme now. And then so I can now change the colors that are going on in me if I wanted to. So if I do that same thing to myself, and I push my skin tones more towards the yellow sort of side, you'll see I look a little bit green and a little bit maybe sick, right? Maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want to go the other way where I'm kind of pushing myself towards purples and blues, and that will kind of line up nicely with the colors that are going on in the background, and work together to sort of harmonize with the colors in me and the colors that are going on back there. But you could easily only adjust the colors that are going on in your face or the colors that are going on in the shirt. You could swap those colors out for something lighter in the background. These are colors that I had originally played with earlier. So that lighter background really makes my features sort of push forward, but still complementary color schemes. This one being a little bit more, I would say, direct or split complement or direct complements, whereas the other one that I had up before was more like a split complementary color scheme. So so then, you know, saving that one as a copy again and calling that one, putting that in that same folder. Where did the folder go? Digital sketches for painting, painting sketch 1. We're going to call this painting sketch 2. So just use that same name and just change it from 2 to 1. From 1 to 2, sorry. Or, you know, you use some of the other images that you've got there, and you could develop some other ideas based on the drawing ideas you have, or the other filters that you've applied to it, a combination of the two. So in this one, I'm going to paint underneath it. So I'm going to put a layer that's under the glow layer here. That's a brand new layer that's just going to go, we're going to call that color. And we're going to put that underneath the glow layer. And the background layer in the glow layer, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got this weird sort of like texture back there. And you can see it if you were to start painting. Let's say I took out this brush using this sort of pale kind of sky color right there. And let's say I take out a paintbrush, and let's make it kind of a big gestural kind of paintbrush, like that. And if I start painting on that layer, you'll see nothing happening because the color layer is behind the glow layer there. So you can see it's there. My marks are there, but it's not showing up because it's underneath the glow layer. But if you tell that glow layer to be affected by like these ways to sort of multiply or let the color show through that's going on underneath it, it'll allow for those marks to come through. So I'm you know, here's the color layer that I'm working on, and as I paint, you can see I'm painting over the background. I'm also painting on my face, but I'm only doing that just so I'll be able to very quickly get rid of that in a second. So I'm just making some sort of paneling marks and laying down some colors. And again, I wouldn't want to do that with my mouse. I want to be probably painting. When I paint, I like to use the stylus to do that with, because you can make small marks, very gestural kind of marks, and bigger marks just by pressing harder on it right there, right? And then I can very quickly kind of go into the layers and that I want to, you know, edit out, and I'm just erasing off of that color layer that I'm working on back there. Okay, so this is another technique, another way to go about doing that, where you're painting under your drawing. Your drawing is there, and you're just kind of painting around it or under it, just carefully kind of going around or painting inside of an area that you want to add color to. So if I wanted to add like some skin tone here, Go back to my palette with some of these skin tones that I'd saved earlier. So something like that. And I'm painting, now I'm just sort of painting into the area that I want the color to occupy. It's painting over top of the background color that I put in there, that blue kind of color. And it's just replacing it with that. So it's a straight up sort of colorization that's occurring there. So it's just me painting over top of it with a base kind of color. And it's kind of a bit of a noxious kind of base kind of color, base skin tone. So, you know, it's a color on top of that that's just a little bit lighter to indicate the areas that are sort of more like in between, and then lighter even of that to indicate areas that are catching light, and even lighter than that for hot spots, areas that are where the light is kind of showing through. And you can see the mode that I'm working in, I'm just painting over top of the colors that I'm using. Each time I change a color, it's full on just covering over top of the color that was underneath it. So it's replacing the content that's there with just a color that I'm painting with, and it's an immediate sort of over spilling of that color from one color to the next, and it's just replacing it. So, but if you want the colors to mingle, to migrate, what you can do is you can play with the kind of flow and the kind of opacity that's coming out of the brush. So if I change the opacity of this so that it's not 100%, but it's more like 70%, then when you paint over top of the blue, you'll see it change slightly, because it's not covering it 100%. It's just slightly covering it. So when I paint over top of this area that's both white and blue over top of it, you'll see it start to kind of cover it up. And then if you let go and you come back over top of it, it will slowly kind of build up that color. So these are ways to kind of slowly kind of build your color up by painting it on less opaquely and more transparently. And this is where the look and the feel of like oil paint can be had. So so overpainting a little bit of highlight there, a little bit of highlight over here, and it's toning it down a bit, right? So color that comes straight out with 100% opacity will just cover up a color that exists. So it completely will not erase it, just substitute the color that's there for the color that you're painting on top of it. Whereas when you take that color and you tell it to not be as opaque, and then you come in with let's say a lighter color over top of this, it's going to allow you to tone that area a bit. So now I'm just lightly kind of toning that area that's the cheek right there. And the more you paint over top of it, let go, pick up, and press back down, the more it will give you a more of an overpainting of the color that's there. So here, that first stroke, you see how it's almost gray because that blue is underneath it. And the next step, you see how now it's turning more pale. Next one, even more pale. Third time, even more pale. So each time I go over top of that, it's giving me a little bit more of a kind of an overpaint of color. And this is simulating how we paint in with oil paints. This is how oil painting works. It's a lot of thin layers that you build up over the course of some time, and some pressure and some varying kind of brushes. I'm only using one brush here, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't use a multitude of brushes to get the look and feel that you like. So I'm just sort of slowly going over top of that. Leave some of that blue showing through in the shadows. It's actually pretty nice. I like it when that blue shows through. It's actually a technique that I like using in painting, where you start off with a green blue or a blue green kind of underpainting in the shadowy areas, and you let some of that show through and it creates this beautiful kind of cooler shadow kind of area, and then the highlight areas and the warmer areas you use straight up skin tones that are more sort of true to life. Try it out. It's fun. So don't be afraid to play with that opacity. That will help you to kind of build up the color slowly over the course of the painting. And you can probably get away with doing this like 3 colors, really. Just a color that is the skin tone, so something like that, right? And then a color that is the shadow. So this could be where you let some of the blue show through, or somewhere you pick up a deep shade of the color and you just sort of add a little bit of the skin tone there, right? So it's kind of a little exaggerated there, but I can come back with some of the regular skin tone to beat it back a bit and make it a little less obnoxious. And then the highlight color, basically to sort of indicate, where the light is hitting the most. Okay. And all this, just to remind you, all this is happening on the color layer that's underneath the drawing layer and underneath this glow edge layer that I have there. So all that is giving me the sort of the structure of the form that's there. So all those lines that I created are still there, and I'm painting under them and letting them be on top of the image as it goes through the process of creating that. So so again, I'm using true to life kind of skin tones here, more like that are coming directly from life. They might be a little saturated, but they are essentially tones that are indicative of the skin tones that I might find in my own face. So I'm trying to be representational with the colors that I'm using, but the marks that I'm making are a little bit more painterly. If you guys have questions while I'm working, you can just turn on your mic and ask. Otherwise, I don't see the typing as it's coming up, so I've got to kind of go back and check those. Is there a current version of Photoshop you want us to use? The most recent version of Photoshop is 21, but any version of Photoshop it will allow you to do everything I've done. Older versions going back as far as 2015 will have all these tools that I'm talking about here. All the filters that I've used, those have been around forever. All these painterly techniques and the ability to communicate with a Wacom tablet have been around forever. That version of Photoshop that you use doesn't really matter. It'll allow you to make layers, allow you to make these adjustments, all that sort of stuff will be able to happen. So yeah, that's not a big deal. And then somebody else had a question. Hang on one second. Is there a certain size of pixel, etc., when we are creating a new document in Photoshop? If you go by the size of the photo that you're using, whatever camera you use to take your picture, it's probably going to be a good enough size to work with. Whatever, if you're using your cell phone, and you take you do your selfie with your cell phone, the image that you get on that cell phone is going to be, unless it's like a flip phone, it's going to be good enough quality to work with whatever comes out of that image. I took these photos with I think it's a 12 megapixel camera, so it wasn't a really high-end camera at all, almost like a point-and-shoot camera, which is crappier than anything that's in a iPhone 10, 11, 12, or 13. And so it's plenty big enough. The image that I have here, that I'm working with here, is 16 by 16. So it's well big enough for the purposes of the digital sketches. So if you have something that is in that realm, 12 megapixel image, you should be fine. I think that was it. Any other questions? Oops, I can't do that. Okay. I'm going to use my mouse to go back to. Will these be used as the final piece, or can we do a more traditional painting? You can do a traditional painting, absolutely, and just using your photographic reference to get your proportions correct, to get your features, and to get the image to look like the person that you're talking about or yourself. I'm doing it with a picture of myself so that I can very quickly, keeping all my structure, keeping all my proportions, keeping all my my basic aspects that are me, because I want it to look like me when it's all said and done. I want it to be a proper portrait, and so that is something that I can refer back to and practice with, and when it comes down to the act of physically painting this later on, that's going to be something that I do after the sketches are done. So the sketches are really hopefully going to be something that is you're going to use to really pull off the likeness, the look and the feel, and get you close to reality. Because I know a lot of students struggle with getting the likeness of the person that they're doing, whether it's themselves or whether it's a friend. They always struggle with the issues of getting proportions correct, getting features to be accurate, and getting the likeness of the person that they're trying to do a portrait of to look good. So this is a way to get that, to pull that off, to make the changes that you need to make in terms of get ideas for color, but also to get the image to look good. And I think it's an important thing. You want it to look like the person that you're sketching. You want it to keep their features. You want to keep their expression. You want to keep all these things that are coming out of the photo, but you don't want it to look like a photo. So where's the happy medium? Where can you go to sort of find that happy place that is painterly, that looks painterly, that has painterly quality, that has a look and a feel to it that still has the person's character in mind, still looks good, and it also will serve as a good sketch for the jumping off point for the piece. So the answer is absolutely. If you don't have any kind of issues with moving into that phase, then I would say 100% you can do it that way. Otherwise, if it intimidates you, but trying to match the likeness and the image of the person that you're trying to paint, then use these techniques to get you to a point where you can come up fairly quickly with some options as far as where to go with the painterly style, and then what you do next is you either take this idea and you push it to a canvas. So if you're working on canvas paper, you take the idea and you can basically turn off all the color. You've got your sketch here now. You've got your structure, and you basically print the image that you're later going to bring color to. Print this, and then image transfer this to your canvas paper if that's what you're working on. I like the canvas paper for the transfer. Probably one of the better looking ways to go about the image transfer process, and it will facilitate a better kind of finished image in the end when you go to then add color to it later. That process is it's just a technical process, and that requires just getting some of that gel medium, and then gluing the piece that is the print out, gluing that to the substrate, and then peeling the paper off once it dries, and then you've got your sketch transferred right to the paper. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you flip the image first, because remember, it's going to be backwards. So this is going to go face down on the page. So you would want to make sure that the image itself is backwards. So I would say save the sketch, the basic sketch that you're going to use as the jumping off point. Save that as a JPEG file as well. And we're going to call this one drawing for transfer. And then open that file up that you just saved. I see it. I thought I put it in there. And just flip it. So it's a transform command, edit. Go down to that was an edit command. It's not there. Transform's there, but it's not what I need to do. Maybe if I turn off the lock and then under edit, transform, flip horizontal. There we go. So now that's what you should print, right? So it's facing the right way when you actually transfer it to the substrate. And we want to save that as a JPEG, so we don't need layers. So flatten the image and save. Because when it's facing this way, that's how you want it to look on your canvas, because that's how the camera captured you. And so when you print it backwards, it will then transfer onto onto your substrate perfectly in the right direction. And then just print it out to scale, whatever size you want to print this out at. So like my image, I showed you earlier, the image size on this was 16 by 16. But let's say my canvas is 12 by 12, then I would want to scale this down to 12. So I would just come here, make this 12, hit OK, and then print that. And then that can then be transferred. Well, most printers don't print 12 by 12, so you'd have to either print it in two tabloid sheets, or scale it down to a size that you can print, or that your printer can do, and it will allow you to then take that laser print and transfer it. Don't forget on those tips that I talked about for the last assignment, when we were talking about that transfer process, that the best paper to use for this is just the cheapest copier paper that's out there, because you're going to get rid of the paper in the end. It's just going to peel off, and what you're going to be left with is the image pressed into the canvas paper that you created. So I still have this one. That is, this is the canvas paper that I had showed you the technique on, and then on this side of it is the image transfer, and you can see all the paper has been removed from it. So it just feels like that image has been printed literally onto the canvas, and that's pretty much what's going on here. Is that gel medium that medium that you coat the paper, coat the canvas with before you put the paper down, that is the thing that grabs a hold of the laser toner from the laser print, and it holds it, suspends it, and then once it dries, you just remove the paper that's on top, and it leaves the image behind, and that gives you a nice image to then start painting with. I should say painting on top of. So, and then the sketches you can go back to. You can pull those up either onto your desktop, your laptop. The sketches that are representational of where all your colors are. I actually recommend printing it out, because then you can have a physical printout on paper, and then if you're trying to match color, mixing it on a palette, and then you can hold it up and see it right there on the piece of paper that's been printed out, rather than having your laptop up and holding up your palette knife to see if you've got the colors right, because it's reflected light hitting the color versus light coming out of the computer. It's a little different. So, but it's a nice way to kind of have that goal for yourself sitting there for real in print, and it's ready to go. If you have any issues with paying for prints or worrying about where to get prints, I can print these things for you guys to get these things printed, and I can print as big as tabloid. Tabloid is a 11 by 17 or 12 by 18 is the oversized tabloid, and I can print in color as well as in black and white. So you just have to let me know that you're in need of that assistance, and I'll help you get those printed out and get those copies to you. And that could happen as soon as tomorrow, because I'm on campus tomorrow. I think I'm on campus on Friday too, and maybe even over the weekend. Just you have to let me know ahead of time. You'll get me the files. We can do it all digitally, and then I can leave the prints in my mailbox at school. You can go by there and pick them up and get started with this project. But for Monday, if you could just meet with me one-on-one on Monday and just show me some ideas that you've come up with color schemes, and also look and feel of the images that you've chosen. If you want some feedback for the images that you've already selected today, I'm happy to talk to you, and you can share those with me, and I can give you my opinion on what you've chosen. The crucial thing, I think, by Monday is to really kind of have something as far as a look and a feel that you're wanting to go towards, and then like that basic grayscale image that I just showed you here, that is the jumping off point for where the color is going to go, and then some examples of the actual colors that you're going to be using. So whether they be split complement, straight complement, double complement, the choice is yours. So okay, let me check, see if anybody has more questions.